Shalom Aleichem. This is being brought to you by Rabbi Yehuda Shane, Administrator of Kashrus Anytime, which is the division of the Kosher Consumers Union, a 501c3 organization. We're going to continue now the second chapter of Esroigim and the issue of Murkavim. So as we finished off in the 1800s, basically the Esroigim and Esrol were basically around Shechem, Tzfas, Tveria, Malfam, and Wadi Kalt, etc., etc., and they called the Baladi Esrig, which is basically, if in Arabic that means native, to distinguish it from the Korfu or Parga Esrig that was planted in Yafu, because they wanted to make sure that they're not mixing it up with the ones that came from Greece. The Mechaber of Turas Haaretz of Yosef Schwartz in Prietz Hodder writes that up until his time in 1844, there was no commercial Murkavim in Esrol. There was, some were doing it, but not on a commercial level that we really were that we had that much to be concerned about. Even though there was some Murkavim in the Sfas area, but very, very little. You were able to tell you took from the wall one, you didn't take the ones that were really very well taken care of, etc., etc. Now let's take the Yemenite Esrog. The Yemenite Esrogim basically was that there was a Kabbalah from Yaakov Sapir. He writes that the Kabbalah was that when they left Eretz 42 years before the Churban Bayis Rishon and settled on Yemen, they brought along their own Esrogim with them. And basically, as we said before, they kept it by the houses. Each one planted his own Esrogim. When somebody got married, he planted Esrog wherever he lived, the Esrog tree, and then they took together. That we covered that in the previous thing about Esrogim. Then the Shamash the shul would then distribute the Esrogim to those who didn't have trees of their own. The Brisker Rav told Rabbi Fol Reichman, if not for the fact that his father Reb Chaim made a bracha on Esrog, he wouldn't make a bracha on Esrog because he felt that all Esrogim was Safek Murkav. And the din is a Safek bracha is the Kula. Therefore, the Brisker Rav used to basically hold in his hand the most Mehudik Esrog when making the bracha, but he had on the table, he had Esrogim of all different kind of Miyuchasim, etc., etc. Then Rabbi Fol Reichman asked him, which Esrog would you use if you could only have one? So he said a Taman Esrog. He felt that one really had the Masuri more than the other one. But a lot of people wouldn't use that Taman Esrog because they grow big as cantaloupes, etc., etc. And others had a problem with the Taman Esrogim. A lot of times you find that there is absolutely no seeds, no pits in there, nothing, no juice, dry completely. But they really found that if you plant it in a climate that has a little bit more water, not such a dry climate, it does have seeds and it does have some juice in it, etc., etc. It depends. When it grew in basically a dry climate, etc., Itaka was missing these kind of things. The University of California has in its citrus collection the Taman Esrog that was grafted onto lemon rootstock, and the fruit is totally dry, even though it's on a rootstock of lemon, so maybe it's no rye on those kind of things. But the Taman that came to Eretz Yisrael in the early 1900s, they brought along a lot of the Esroigim from Taman, in order to plant over there in Eretz Yisrael. And they maintained the same custom that when somebody got married, they planted in their own yard, etc., etc. And a lot of Taimana settled Rosh Ayin or Kfar Nachem, and you'll take a look and you see over there's a lot of Taman Esrogim in those areas over there. Then other commercial growers went and replanted that in other areas of Esrol, and they replanted some of the Taman Esrogim also in California. And really, they retained the Bichezkas Kasha as long as you know that whoever is planted over in Esrol on a commercial basis or in California, that you could rely on them on exactly what it is that they're from, and then they weren't playing any games with our cover, etc., etc. Now we'll go to the Moroccan Esrog. The Moroccan Esrog, what is the Samchas on their Esrogim? So it seems like the chief rabbi from over there, from Morocco, Rav Mansengo, who used to send the Moroccan Esrog to the Brisker Rav every year, and his grandfather and great-grandfather, all of them were born in Morocco, and they were taking Esrogim that grew in the mountains of Agadar, and they said that they have basically B'Msur so many generations back that those definitely were not any Murkavim, and not B'nai Murkavim, not Tolis Murkavim, nothing like it. And the way the Arabs used to propagate new trees is like we said in the beginning, they bent the branch into the ground and they took it, but there was no reason for a cover, because the Esroigim was basically, as you look at Moroccan Esrog over the last 50, 60 years, they pretty much look the same. You could take a look at what a Moroccan Esrog looked like, and they all look basically the same. So they never really had Merkavim, and Turles Merkavim is also non-existent. And it's brought down in this forum that the six Moroccan Rabbanim in 1863 confirmed the Masura that the Moroccan Esrogim from Agador Mountains never had a suffix about that it wasn't Murkov. And Aruch Laner writes that in 1857 he used the Moroccan Estig, and he also had that same Masura. Now we'll get to the Yanav Estig. Yanav Estig was mostly found among European people for hundreds of years, and the real didn't come from Yanav, it came from Genoa, but because the port was in Yanav, they called the Yanav Esroigim. And they said it's a Maseres B'Yadenu that Moshe Rabbeinu and others, this one used it and that one used the Yanav Esroigim. But it seems basically that that a lot of them over the years said it that in the name of the Gra. At that time, he said it's a mitzvah mufcha to use the Yanav Esrog, because at that time he felt that it wasn't Murkov. But since that time, things have changed tremendously. In the Sefer Pri Eitz Hadar, he writes that 90% of Yanav Esroigim became Murkavim. And of Kellen, Minchas Yehuda Yerushalayim also writes that Yanav Esroigim Banataz are Murkavim. Now there's somebody that went and brought in Hashgacha for the Yanav Esroigim, so he brought it about him. And it's now on the Hashgacha from Sach Tzarabonim. And basically, the only thing that they're really doing is they're checking the trees if this tree itself was a Murkav. Because they're definitely, they're a tolda of Murkavim they are. The question is, a tolda of a Murkav, is it kosher to make a bracha, or is it b'di'evet, or whatever else it is, but evidently the Rabbanim of Sach Tzarabonim, they felt that the tolda Murkav was acceptable, because they don't find the trees are the actual Murkavim itself, because basically, the growers learned, they were the first ones, they were Markav, straight, right onto that they did grafting, and then they took branches and they kept on planting it over, and it grew basically the type of Esroigim they want, and a lot of them basically, the Satmar Chassidim are basically using the Yanav Esroigim because they feel it has Ashgacha from the Sachtas, and they feel very comfortable with it, but basically, we could call them the Bichezkas Toldas Murkov. Then we're addressing before the Yafa Esroigim, which basically came from Greece, from Kurdo. Basically, what was the story with those Yafa Esroigim? Were they grafted or they weren't grafted? So it's very hard to determine of what happened at that time over there, if they were grafting them or not. So there were seeds taken from these Esroigim, they were planted in Yafa. This new type of has begun to grow in Estrol. 10 years later, Sir Moses Montefiore bought this pardas to provide the Jews of Yafa with a source of income. And the pardas became the forebear of the Esroigim known today as the Ordang Esrog. The seeds from these Esroigim were used to plant many other pardesim. Eventually, these became the most popular Esrog in all of central Estrol. These Esroigim were the first Esroigim in Estrol to have pitons, and the stunning appearance that Kofar Esroigim were famous for. Then in 1873, Chaim Elazar Vax, the Nefesh Chaya, bought land in Kfar Chitim, near Tveri, and planted 600 trees with plans to plant a lot more. And he planted them from the Baladi trees, which the Baladi had a chazaka from the days of the Beis Yosef, and that basically they were not Murkav. In 1875, they harvested 600 Esroigim. 1883, they were up to 40,000 Esroigim, and they were using them to export it to Chutz La'aretz. But Lamaisa, they still were not able to compete with the beauty of the Corfu Esrog from that was planted in Yafa. So in 1876, the Baladi merchants accused the Yafa merchant of selling the Esroigim that were Merkavim. The Yafa merchant in return accused the Baladi merchant of selling the Esroigim that were not kosher due to the lack of pitons. In order to resolve the suspicious regarding the status of Esroigim Yafa, the Badat of Yerushalayim sent out a delegation of Rabbanim to inspect all the pardesim and see if they were grafting the trees. The delegation reported at best, and there were many trees growing in different pardesim in the Yafa area being Murkav with sweet lemon. They were able to identify their cover by telltale signs on the trunk of the trees, which we discussed earlier, and the joint that connected the two branches. They also brought back samples of Esroigim that grew in the Yafa pardesim that looked just like regular Karfa Esroigim. However, they also testified they investigated trees growing in Alfam and Chitin and Tveri and Tzfas and Shechem, and didn't find a single grafted tree. The Bezdin decided to allow the Esroigim of Yaffa after the trees with obvious signs of recovery would be uprooted, and the remainder of the trees that didn't have signs of recovery would be under strict supervision of the Bezdin, as so no new recovery can take place. But Rav Auerbach basically wrote that even though they uprooted the grafted trees they found in Yaffa, he still can't be mocked at the Yaffa Esroigim as they were grown with Corfu seedlings, which were definitely told us Merkovim. So he didn't want to accept that Bechlal. And then suddenly a letter from the Badat came out with Ashgoch on the Esroigi Yaffa, including the signature of Meir Auerbach. And it's known that at the end of the winter of 1877, basically the Meir Auerbach became sick and he was not in his full senses, but it seems at that time is when the letter came out with his signature that he accepted those trees as that it's mutter and it's not even told us more good. Now we'll go to the Esroigim of Maral Diskin. The Braverman and Kivalevet Esroigim is basically what they have the yichus goes back to the Bishulei Diskin. It seems those have a pretty strong Masorah going back basically hundreds of years, and even the Chazon made a statement to Rabbi Frankel that he felt that the Zikni Yerushalayim, the Rosh Hashanah and his followers were makbid to use exclusively these Esroigim, and that they knew that there was no arkava being done on those Esroigim. Now the Braverman Esroig is the oldest of the Israeli Esroigim available today with a Masorah that can be traced back to a reliable source. The Baladi, which is we spoke about. So Rabbi Chiel Per was once given a Braverman Esrog by Rabbi Aaron Kotler to give his father of Menachem Mendel Per. Rabbi Aaron instructed him to tell his father, "Das is sicher nit kein Murkov," that this is definitely not a Murkov. B'zarach Reuven Bravo was one of Maral Diskin's closest Talmidim, and his son Rabbi Shlomo David's yard in Petach Tikva. There were the trees planted in 1894, either by B'zarach himself or more likely by Shlomo David from Esrik, that his father told him that the Maral Diskin himself used. We don't know exactly where the Esrik that he planted, where it originated from exactly. We know that the Maral Diskin used it, he said, but we don't know where it really came from. The trees in Rishol David's yard did not survive much. The last one died in 1937, but before the last tree died, a grandson of him planted new seedlings in his own yard in Petach Tikva, and they died away also before 1946. So when the Braverman family realized that trees were dying, they transplanted in their yard seedlings taken from Rechol Michal Kivalevitz of Bat Yam. Kivalevitz grew Esroigim taken from his father-in-law, the Pinchas Globman, to Kivalevitz Esrog. So the seedlings that were taken before 1946 are genuine Braverman. Those taken from Yitzchak's yard after this date are probably Kivalevitz Esroigim and not the famous Braverman Esrog. Where the Kivalevitz Esrog start from? Basically, it came from the Wadi Kelt near Yericho. The Beladi Esroigim in Wadi Kelt had a Masorah of being the original Israel Esroigim from the Zikni Yerushalayim. The Maral Diskin was nifted in 1898 when the Yechiel Michal Kivalev was just 4 years old. So it's safe to assume that the Maral Diskin did not instruct the young boy to plant these Esroigim. Now we'll get to the famous Chazon Esroigim. The Chazon arrived in Etzrol in 1933 and immediately started researching the Esroigim growing there. The first sukkah in Etzrol, he asked his friend Moshe Lewitzki to supply him with an esrog from Braverman's trees, because he felt that had a Masorah from Maral Diskin. The following summer, while in Tzfas for health reasons, the Chazon visited fields near Tzfas and studied the looks of non-Murkav Esroigim that grew wild in that area. That year, Reb Chaim Yaakov Halpern was vacationing in Tzfas and joined the Chazon on his many field trips. The Chazon took an esrog that satisfied his criteria and gave it to Reb Halpern to plant. From that esrog descended the famous Halpern Zan. At a later time, the Chazon gave Reb Michal Yehuda Lefkowitz an envelope with seeds from an esrog he shook on Sukkot and told him to plant it. When at a later time he asked about the esrog, how he knew it wasn't a murkov, the Chazon just answered, "Es zazovi a Masorah," just like a Masorah. It seems quite obvious that Reb Michal Yehuda was never told the exact source of the seeds he received from the Chazon. But in 1935, after Rosh Hashanah, we see the Chazon Ish second-guessed his esrog choice based on additional information he had become aware of. Was only a short while after Chazon Ish picked his choice esrog. He wrote the following letter to Moshe Lewitsky, which I'm going to read it typed over in English. I've learned of a new kind of grafting. A commercial Murkav esrog is grafted upon a wild non-Murkav esrog, not on the land, and the Esroigim from this tree are marketed as non-Murkavim. This is done with instructions of the Rabbanim, Rav Kook, and I've seen these Esroigim. Their appearance is like ours, and therefore the Tvias Ayin that I relied upon is void. I therefore want to ask you to send me an esrog from the person you got an esrog from every year that has absolutely nor a cover mixed in it. So it seems the Chazon Ish was uncomfortable even when an esrog was grafted on a different Zan esrog. He also didn't want to accept that thing. And the Chazon Ish retracted from his Tvias Ayin. And why did he use and encourage the use of the helper esrog? We don't know. Rav Kook set out to rectify the whole problem of Murkavim. He wrote a whole sefer called Eitz Hadar, which he puzzled as regular Murkavim, and explains in length the reason the Murkav is possible. He also writes that there is almost no way to verify if an esrog is a Murkav by location alone. Even an esrog taken from a place that's Bichezkas Mesorah cannot be assumed to have retained that Cheskes Tara, since the esrog tree does not last more than 10 years. The fact that in the past the trees were not Murkavim does not prove that the newer replacements are not Murkavim. Even the well-known Simonim often used to identify non-Murkavim were only meant to clarify the status of a Suffolk Murkav. They were not meant to be used as a way to permit an esrog, which is almost certainly a Murkav. But the Beis Ephraim decided that a toldus Murkav is permitted, and they would only be concerned with the actual Murkavim, which can easily be avoided by checking the trees. This was the position allowing toldus Murkav taken by the Badatz, allowing Esroigim Yafa, as well as all Ordang and Yanav Esroigim, which originate from Esroigim that were toldus Murkavim. So now when you have a Badatz Esrog and it says Bichezkas, it's basically, you can count that it's in all likelihood it is a Murkav, but it's only a toldus of a Murkav, and it's not the original Murkav of the tree. And it seems the Chazon Ish was not that comfortable with the original Braverman esrog either, because he chose a different look than that of the Braverman esrog when he went looking around. But basically, Chazon Ish passes like the Rishonim that all our cover definitely changed the look of the esrog, and we don't know what he relied on the Tvias Ayin, which he took the Tvias Ayin to rely on the Tvias Ayin more than so-called the Mesorah, that we know that these weren't, whatever else it is. He was relying more on what the look of it is. So you have that they're using the Ordang, the Badatz esrog was what they're using over there, which we know is just not on Murkav stock. But the Chazon Ish Esroigim, basically, it seems like the most reliable ones. What we have now, if somebody's looking for close to non-Murkav, even Teiladus, is either the Braverman, the Kivalevitz is one step down, the Taman or the Moroccan. Those are the Taman and the Moroccan are miyuchs because of Mesorah. The Halpon Lefowitz from the Chazon Ish is Tvias Ayin. And the Braverman seems that at that time he felt comfortable with the Braverman in the beginning, so we really don't know exactly what it is. So you're basically taking a pretty big chance with these Esroigim, especially the girls. And if you take a look at the pictures from the Chazon Ish Esroigim of 40, 50 years ago, then you go back to 30 years ago, 10 years ago, and now they suddenly they're keeping on moving along, looking more and more like a much nicer esrog. And it's very hard to say that it's because of the nutrients you give in the tree. It's more mustaber that somehow or other somebody was doing something with the trees. I don't want to call it a cover, whatever else it is, but very hard to say Bisman Azeh that you really have an esrog. You can really count that it's really built in Murkav, unless you're really going to take the ones from the Moroccan ones or the Taimana ones. There you have somewhat more of a chance of having it done that way. Kol Tov, we'll end with a thing now, even though we didn't cover all the areas. A lot of things were left open, not transparent enough, etc. But for brevity, we'll leave it at this point. Kol Tov.